Oh my God. Hello, Mr. Ali Amir. It's nice to meet you. And today we will have a small interview with you. So we have a couple questions for you, and thanks for your time to giving us.
Amazing.
And can you give us a little introduction? And meanwhile, I have my colleague, it's Miss Gabriela, so she will be with
Hello.
me.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah, for sure. Again, thank you for having me. My name is AmirALi. I've been doing sales for, I would say, since I graduated university back in 2018. So it's definitely been a couple of years. I've been in different sectors of sales as well, different industries. But most recently, it's the job that I have had for the past 5 years or so. I'm in healthcare software sales. So that's where I predominantly, do a lot of my sales in. And again, been with the company for over 5 years. So yeah, I'm very happy to, answer some more questions.
Amazing. Thank
The first one it will be, what has your career progression in sales been like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So back in university, I used to study life sciences. So I was always really passionate about the healthcare sector. But at the same time, during my university career, I realized that, I like giving my opinion. I like, standing up in class and asking questions, or I like to, have maybe some debates. So communication was like a big factor for me as well. So when I was in university, I started some sales jobs. So I started off working at the Lacoste retail store. I was there for a couple of months, and then that's the kind of like the first place when I realized, you know what, sales might be something in it for me because it was kind of like you'd get like a base salary, but you'd also get commission on top of that. And I was doing good at sales in that position, even though I'm not really passionate about selling clothes. It was something that came kind of naturally to me. So from there, I then wanted to kind of explore further in this side of the sales world. So I looked at different jobs, and I was able to get myself a job at Bell Canada. So it's basically a door-to-door sales job where I'd be walking, sometimes in the rain, sometimes in the snow, like walking door to door and disturbing people's peace and trying to sell them internet, TV, or home phone. So that was also kind of like a boot camp for sales for me. You get a lot of rejections, you get a lot of objections. People want you out of their lawn as soon as possible. So I did a good job there too. That was fully commissions based. So that's the only way for me to make money was to make a sale. So you need a lot of resilience, a lot of work ethic. From there, I graduated university, and sales was something that I already had some level of experience with. I didn't want to get into like, the professional schools of med school or dental school. I didn't really find a passion for that. So I decided to give sales another chance. I'm like, you know what, let's see where this goes. So I got a job at Xerox Canada, which Xerox is known for their, sales processes, and it's kind of like IBM, where, if you work at Xerox, the amount of pain you'll go through, it kind of really helps you develop as a salesperson. So Xerox was another boot camp where I was doing more B2. So I went from doing B2C in Bell to doing B2B. So that was my first B2B experience, selling printers door to door. And now I'm at AmirALi, which is healthcare. So I started working smaller deals, medium size, and now I'm doing large enterprise, government size deals. So that's been kind of my progression over the
Thank you
years.
for your full answer.
Yeah.
And the second question, my colleague Gabriela would ask you.
So, can you tell us in this whole process, what are the most effective methods for reaching out new prospect you find?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a number of ways. So first of all, if you're lucky enough to be in a company that have a CRM full of leads, that makes your life a lot easier. So I would say the first thing you need to do is to find leads. right? Whether it's already there in your business or you have to find new ones by Googling, finding lists. For example, I'm in the home care industry. I could try to find a list of, different home care agencies to go after by just Googling it. You'd be surprised how many agencies you can find just by Googling. There are also other tools that we use to find leads, like yeah, LinkedIn Navigator, right? You can put different criteria, different filters. You need to have like a premium account for that, but LinkedIn is always really good for finding leads. Zoom Info is another website that we use for that. But yeah, once the leads are actually there, then you start kind of doing the outreach and the prospecting. For me, the most you can never go wrong with just the phone calls, right? As a salesperson, that would never stop.
Hmm.
Obviously, it's getting harder and harder making a phone call
Yeah,
because
most of
people
the
get
time people don't answer calls
don't
now.
answer, or everyone's getting bombarded by phone calls too, all from different places, and there are all these AI bots trying to scam people. So it's just
Mm.
becoming more and more difficult. There are emails, obviously, that we send out as well, or sequences, as we call them in the sales world. So sequenced emails. So that honestly, sometimes it's even more effective than phone calls because you could create different marketing campaigns and kind of hit them with different value propositions. If they're going to be getting the emails, if they're interested, if they respond, that means that's kind of like, okay, there's something there, right? So a mix of phone calls, messaging people on LinkedIn, email sequences. I would say you need a combination of all of that. Other stuff that we do is we do email sequences and invite people to our company events. So like a webinar, for example, for a cohort of our prospects. So then they'll come, we actually give them some value by teaching them something or pointing something that they didn't know. And then we ask them at the end who wants to learn more. And then they become like warmer leads at that point. Yeah, so a mix of
Great,
all.
that sounds great. We
Yeah.
know about LinkedIn. Do you think it's really worth it to pay LinkedIn?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say social selling is becoming more and more important. Again, as these traditional ways of selling is kind of going away, like the phone calls and emails, like it's not that it's going away, it's just the approach to it is changing because it still could be very effective. Social selling is becoming more and more like stronger. Like to give you an example, let's say you're a business that has 50 customers, right? And your goal is to get, a lot more customers, obviously. How you could use LinkedIn is you could add some filters. You could create a list and you could add some filters and say, from these 50 customers, let me know how much of them, like what contacts that we know that we're connected to have now left this businesses in the past like 3 months and gone to like all these different companies, right? So then
Hmm.
you could follow the where your prospect, where your customers are moving, because everyone changes jobs every 2, 3 years, right? So you could kind of follow their path. So now you have someone that you're already connected to on LinkedIn that has already experienced your system or your product, and now they're in a new business that's not your customer. So then you could just reach out to them and say, hey, listen, we worked together before. Now you're in this new business. Help me get my foot in the door. Right. So that's one very important thing that we do at our company here when it comes to social selling.
Okay,
Then, so I would say it's
sure.
definitely
And once you find those potential clients, what type of situational questions do you ask them to know, like the where they are, where are they looking for? What are
yeah.
those questions you make?
Yeah. So I would say it's very important to have like a base level knowledge about their business before you get on a call. You don't need to know too much, but you just maybe like a quick browse of their website. It goes a long way because they would appreciate that if you're having a conversation with them and you know a little bit about their business. But in our sector, every sector is different, but some situational questions that we ask is how many customers you have, how many employees you got, what sort of services do you do, And then that's when you ask those situational questions. You kind of learn about what size they are and what are their high level objectives for their business, what are some of their strategical goals, right? But to me, like how I go about it personally, every salesperson is different. Uh, I don't just straight up go into, situational questions, right? Like if I'm doing a prospecting call or if it's a sales call, um, like I try to talk to them like another human being, right? This
Yeah,
is
like a normal person.
normal
Just
person,
don't
just a
bombard them with
conversation.
questions.
You don't
Okay.
want to be very regimented on sales calls, right? Because they're trying to buy from you. They're not trying to buy from your company, they're trying to buy from you. So you need to build that level of trust. And you can't do that if you're just like reading off a piece of paper and say, okay, what's your size? How many employees you got? It just
Yes, okay. It
so
sounds
I
like a
try to,
robot.
yeah, it depends on the person you're talking to as well. But for the most part, I try to talk to them like a human being, I talk to them like a friend. First, even gauge if they're even interested into having a conversation, right? Because if they're not interested in having a conversation, there's not much you could do. So
You're
first,
gonna lose your
gauge,
time.
yeah, exactly. You just gauge their interest. And now if there's interest, you're like, okay, if it's okay with you, can I ask you a couple of questions? And then once they give that permission, that's when you start asking some of like, tell us a little bit about your business. What is your size of your company? What are some of the things that you're looking for, etc. And then from there, you can dig in a little bit deeper and gain a better understanding as to their challenges, etc.
Sounds good. Yeah. Okay,
So I
Parpin, you
will,
want to make the next question?
yeah, of course. So there's one pretty good question that we did. So could you please share an example of how you use probing techniques to turn a hesitant prospect into a like client?
Mhm. So, um, it's really like when you have reached out to a prospect, right? And you're trying to, because there are different stages of a sales cycle, right? And you're closing at every stage. You
Yeah,
don't just close them once, you have to close them at every single stage. So like from that initial cold call, you're trying to close them on a meeting. From that meeting, you're trying to close them on booking the next meeting. Then from there, close them, book the proposal, close them to sell for you to sell the deal. So at each different stage, like there are different, like for example, on a cold call, right? You're trying to be like, okay, usually the customers that we work with, this is how we help them. Is this something that you've experienced, right? That's kind of like you're kind of probing. It's a probing question for them to, if it's something that they've already thought about, they'll say, oh yeah, yeah, it has been something that I've experienced. And then that's potentially something you could talk to them about. Or in some cases, it could be something that they're not even aware of. It's like a challenge that they're not even educated about. So then they'll be like, okay, actually, can you tell me more? Right? Because maybe some of those customers, they're competitors of them, right?
Mhm.
yeah,
So that's one way of doing some probing questions. When you're actually, booked a discovery call, right? You want to get an understanding as to, again, you kind of give a story as to, okay, here's another customer that we work with, and this has become very important. Has this been something that you've experienced? Or, for example, if you know something about the industry, or something about the sector as a whole that you hear from other customers, you kind of probe that question, be like, listen, like, we hear this happening a lot. Has this been an experience that you've seen? Or like, how does this workflow currently, how do you go about doing this today, knowing deep down that a lot of customers have problems with that? So then you kind of open them up to either, talking about it a little bit deeper, or maybe even like educating them about it, because then you can come off as a advisor to them as well, and
yeah.
you can gain their trust. But I would say it happens at every single stage of the sales process.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Sounds great. Have you ever had to adjust your UBP based on a client's feedback when doing like those probings and you have to adjust last minute you plan to say, yeah, have you
Yeah,
had an
for
experience
sure.
like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, so what I would say to that is I've had to have that I have had that experience several times. At our company, we work with different sectors, right? So we have the home care sector, we have the developmental disabilities, mental health, like there are different facets of home care that we work with. So something important to one type of customer might be different to another type of customer. So I'm hoping that before I get on a call with them, I already know what type of customers they are, so I don't have to change my UVP last second. But you uncover a lot, right? So even like two customers within the same sector could have different needs and different requirements. So as you're going through the discovery call, let's say that initial call that you're having with them, based on the questions that you're asking, you're like, okay, what are some of your challenges today? Right? And then they'll tell you, and these are some of my pain points. So then from there, different questions will come up for you to ask. And you have to maybe change because your software or your product doesn't just have maybe one or two benefits, right? It might have a lot of different value points. It is your job as a salesperson to uncover the pain points that they're having and then changing basically what you have to offer them, right? To bring value to their organization, and that could look different from a customer to another, one prospect to another prospect. So you need to have a good industry knowledge, and you need to be able to not be, as I said before, like very regimented. Like some people before they go on a sales call, they were like, okay, if I'm going to ask this question, then I'm going to go to this question, then I'm going to go to this question. That never works, right? So you always need to be able to be flexible on the call and try to understand from them what's important to them, why is it important, how is it impacting them, and then from there, see if you have something fitting for their situation and then tell them about it. And then both of you guys, like the salesperson and the customer, you guys can both decide whether it's a good fit for you guys to be talking further from there.
I guess that is structure and confidence comes with someone that have worked in this for like 5 years. Um, you were like that also when you were starting, like you were in a call without a script or something, or you just
No,
planned your
I was
script.
the opposite of that when I was first starting. It was like I was very regimented. I used to write down the list of questions I was gonna ask, before, and then I used to pick different scenarios. If they say yes to this, I'm gonna say this. If they say no to this, I'm gonna say this. I had some success with that, but the problem is if you can't account for every single scenario, right? And then once you get yourself in a situation where, okay, it's not going the way that you want it to go, maybe there's a
Mm.
personality difference. Some people are very straight shooters, right? They don't want to talk much, just want to get to the point. Some people are more, they want to build a relationship with you, and so I wasn't like that starting off. I didn't have good active listening either. So when I was having conversations with my prospects, I was doing more of the talking. It
Rather
should,
than
it should
the
be the other way around, right?
okay,
You should be talking the least on the call. If you
Yeah.
ever get out of a call and you talked most of the talking, that was a terrible discovery call. That was a terrible sales call, right? So
that
there were many
makes sense.
mistakes like that I was making, but then I realized that, you know what? There are just a couple of things that I want to uncover, and I don't mind how I go about uncovering them. So the things that I try to uncover now is why now, right? And it's totally okay if there's no why now. But if there's no why now, they're not going to buy from you, right? So you ask them, okay, you're telling me you've had all these things, all these challenges, but you've had these challenges for the past 5 years. Why right now specifically you're thinking about this seriously? If they don't have a why now, good chance you're not going to sell to them, right? So this is one of the questions that I try to uncover, and I don't mind how I go about uncovering that. And then why are you talking to us specifically? And telling, and then kind of like what is the trying to uncover for them what's their return on their investment if they were to work with us. So those are the three things that I try to uncover, and I don't do it regimented. I just kind of go at it. I adapt. Like,
You
I don't
just
know what
go
I'm.
with the flow of the
Yeah, go with
conversation.
the flow, have a conversation. And one thing to keep in mind is equal business stature. Okay. So if I'm talking to you, you're my prospect, you're not better than me. We're the same level, right? So you're trying to convince me as much as I'm trying to convince you that you're a good fit for me. Because if you're a bad fit as a customer, I don't want to have you. I'm not in the business of having bad customers. I'm not in the business of having my resources drained. I'm not in the business of, having to deal with you, right? So if there's no fit here, I'll just move on and you move on and we could be friends, we could not be friends. I don't care, right? You have to be as much of a good fit for me as I'm a good fit for you. There's been many times that I've had a prospect talking to me, and then I kind of have an understanding that, like, you know what, like, potentially they're not a good fit for me, and I disqualify them. Even though they were trying to buy from me, I disqualify them. I'm like, listen, I don't think, based on this conversation, I don't really see a reason as to, I don't think it's going to be a best fit, and we're in the business of having good customers, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
can't say it so bluntly, but it's very important. So those
Yeah.
are another mistake that I used to make that I'm not doing anymore.
Now that you're talking about like bad customers and building relationships, how do you build long-term relationship with your customers?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, and like when it comes to dealing with salespeople, salespeople get a bad rep, right? They're like, oh, this guy's just trying to sell to me. And then as soon as he gets ink on paper, as soon as I sign his contract, I'm not gonna hear from him again, right? So that's kind of uh, some of the reputation that salespeople have. So again, like in that initial conversation, like first impressions matter, right? You can't be acting salesy, right? Like some people they just like act salesy, and people, customers, prospects can see that and they hate it, right? So if they actively think that you're trying to sell to them by just over talking and just trying to like make them see your perspective forcefully, or just using kind of like the traditional like 50-year-old sales lingo, they can see that and they hate it. So just talking to them like another person, having a conversation with them, try to come off as more of an advisor, as someone that's trying to sell to them, right? So if you kind of hear their pain points, and again, this comes a little bit with experience too of and industry knowledge. You're not necessarily going to have that at the beginning. But right now, I'm at a stage of my career where I could go to them and tell them how they could make money. Not even getting our system, but I could tell them like, have you thought of looking into this? I've had other customers that got a contract with them and then they made this much. So coming off as an advisor, right, and just a salesperson, like a consultant, right, someone they could trust. And when you're done selling to them, you don't just go away, right? Like you still reach out to them. You keep like if I see an opportunity that's good for this customer that I sold to before, I'm going to reach out to them and say, hey, I found this opportunity. Or if I found another customer that's similar to them, and I feel like they could value from connecting with each other, I connect them, right? If there
Mm.
are any conferences that I'm going to, I ask them if they're going as well, so I could meet with them. If they're implementing our software and they're going live with our software, I email to congratulate them. If there's a holiday, I email them to say happy holidays, right? So because this this person that I've sold to can bring me more business, right? They're industry experts, so like I'm always gonna be their friend, and they can also leverage me to gain more business too, right? Because I'm also like a industry expert and I work with a lot of other customers. So there's an advantage to keep that relationship going. And when they have a good sales experience, typically they have a good experience with, because that's the kind of
With the
like
product.
that's the foundation, right? You set the right foundation, then that building that you're building together will be strong, right? So
Mhm.
That's correct.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Sorry, Barwin, I'll be jumping around in the
No worries
questions
at all.
without order. How about you make the question 7? We haven't made
Yeah.
question 7.
Um, so there's a question. Okay, so there's one good question. What are your most favorite closing techniques that it's like
yeah,
you can see it and you're done. You can see potential.
yeah. So it's a little different, right? If you're working a deal, and like it's the sales cycle is more transactional, right? Like there's some B2B sales that you literally the sales cycle could be 10 minutes. Like you give them a call and then you kind of sell them on the phone and then that's it, right? So in those situations, I would say like there's some closing techniques would work, right? Like a go-to could be like based on what you've heard so far. Um, is there a reason as to why we can't move forward, right? And then you kind of get their reasoning, and you can objection handle, and you can ask for the close again, right? But in our sector, like you're trying to close at every single stage of the sales cycle, right? Like the discovery, demo, proposal, and then to that final stage. But for me is I ask them like, what are like in the discovery call, like what are your thoughts on this? Like, do you see a fit between like what we talked about and some of your objectives? Yes. Right? And if they say yes, I'm like, okay, that's great. That's good to hear. What sort of timelines do you have for that? And then they'll tell me their timelines. You're like, oh, that's interesting. Why that timeline specifically? And then they'll tell you the reason is behind those timelines. So then during the discovery call, you've kind of closed them for that timeline, right? And the reason as to why we need to reach that timeline. So then in the next stage, after we finish the demo process or having the second meeting, uh, you kind of have their objectives. So this is what we showed you today, and here's how we showed you we could tackle this and this and this that we talked about during the discovery. What are your thoughts on that? Does this align with what you're looking for? Again, they're close. Okay, let's book the next meeting. Book the next meeting. Let's say you're doing a proposal, right? Here are all the pain points that you had. Here are the objectives that you had. Here's how a liker could help. Here's how we could benefit your business. How does this sound to you? What are your thoughts on this? Do you see a liker aligning with some of the things that you're looking for? Are we still aligned on those timelines that we discussed initially? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, then let's move to the next stage. Let me send you a contract, right? And then if they deviate away from those timelines, you could reach out to them and say, hey, when we initially chatted, you mentioned that this is like you need to do this at this time because of this. And if you don't do this, that's the negative impact. So how come, we haven't gotten a signature yet, right? So you're kind of closing at every stage, but the most important thing is that the first closing that you do at the discovery. Because at the discovery call, you're trying to uncover like why are they doing this right now? What happens if they don't do it? What's in it for them? And like these three questions, like they're fundamental. And if any of these answers are missing, like you're relying on luck to close the deal because the foundation is not there. And if you're missing those pillars, you're not. I mean, chances are you're gonna get ghosted later because you get ghosted by prospects all the time, and you can't do anything about it. And then you lost the deal, and then your managers will come to you and say, why did you close this? And then you don't have a reason as to why. So
That's the saddest part.
Understandable.
So
Okay.
I will for the last question. In your experience, so nowadays the AI is evolving, so it's improving every day.
Yeah.
And is it like changed the sales process in B2B healthcare sales, or what's your
Okay.
thought on it?
100%. So I was there in this company that I'm in before AI and now after AI. Like it's yeah. So um first and foremost, right? Like Chat GPT in itself has has helped me a lot. So just like proofreading emails that I write, or if I want something very quickly summarized, or if I've taken notes, I put it in ChatGPT. I'm like, summarize my notes for me and give me some bullet points. So allowing me to have more efficiency, like more operational efficiency in doing my outreach and following up from meetings and taking down my notes, bringing a lot of time back in my day to do what I need to do when it comes to prospecting, when it comes to closing deals. So I don't know by what percentage, but it's definitely increased my efficiency percentage, which then I could allocate those hours to doing more productive things. We've also invested in like another AI type company. It's called Gong, and they're basically it's like an AI assistant that joins the calls and then records it and then takes down all the notes for you, and you could very quickly, ask it questions. Okay, when did I say this? When did I say that? What was this call about? Give me a summary of this call. And so me not having to take notes per se during this call allows me to be more present with my client and having a more fruitful conversation because I know that AI assistant is taking notes for me.
All the notes for you, yeah.
Exactly. So, and I could use it to better my skills as a salesperson. So, for example, I could look at all my calls on aggregate and ask it, what are some of the filler words that I use? Do I say a lot of like, I could re-listen to my recordings and search for specific sections to see what I said. How did I handle, what portions of the call did I do objection handling? I'm gonna kind of review those calls, analyze it, and get somebody else at the company to look at it, to give me some feedback, um, and understand what percentage was I talking versus the customer, right?
Hmm.
How can I go? How can I change my approach? Like, it's really helped me look at my own calls and other salespeople at the company. I could look at their calls too, and always try to fine tune my skills by
So
being,
you're focusing on the client. So you're not thinking that you need to write, you need to make
yeah,
some notes, everything is a background. Yeah, yeah, it's
exactly.
I like that you use it to like hear again the calls in practice because sometimes when you're in a call, you think something different when you hear it again.
Yeah,
Like you think everything went well, but then you hear me and you said like, "Oh, he said this, and I didn't pay attention to this
yeah,
specific detail." Yeah, that's
absolutely,
good.
absolutely.
right. I'm done from my side. Do you have any questions, Gabi?
Sorry?
You want to ask some questions? We
No, I
can.
think I took a lot of notes because I don't have any AI taking notes for me this time. I'm taking my notes. I have great notes. Yeah, yeah, as you can see, all my notes from the call.
Amazing.
Thank you very much
Of
for
course.
giving us your time.
Yeah,
You're really
anytime.
helping us.
Of course. Good luck with the project.
Thank you so much.
And, yeah, let me know if there's anything else. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We're gonna apply to your work soon.
Okay.
After.
Please do. Please do. All
Thank you,
right.
Okay,
guys.
thank you very much.
Take care,
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.